again, this is an animal model analysis, but they also found in this animal model study that normalizing vitamin D levels improves leptin generation per pound of fat mass, and it affects and increases leptin sensitivity, which is really important. So let's talk about leptin. Why do you care about leptin? Well, leptin, as you know, about 95% of it is released from endocytes or fat cells, and it serves to tell your hypothalamus that you have enough energy on board. But when individuals are leptin resistant, it's kind of like being insulin resistant, right? Where insulin doesn't work, and so it's hard to maintain normal glucose levels. Well, leptin is kind of the same thing. When leptin levels are super physiologic, over 29 nanograms per ml, that's when we start to see leptin resistance. And so people have excessive amounts of fat, but they're chronically hungry because these satiety pathways are skewed. Even more about leptin is it's also a pleiotropic cytokine. What does that really mean? Well, leptin not only affects energy sensing and satiety, but it promotes a unique shift in your immune system to make your immune system more chronically inflamed. And so that's why we see people with lupus and multiple sclerosis and allergies and atopy and asthma, they generally have high levels of leptin. And so that's why losing body fat can actually reduce the inflammation in your body because you're becoming more leptin sensitive, and leptin skews your immune system. I wrote a whole book on this if you care. I'm not promoting that. It was over 10 years old, but it's called Belly Fat Effect if you're interested. So leptin sensitivity is really important, and it turns out that vitamin
Get ready
D,
for the next battle.
vitamin D, at least per animal model studies, might improve leptin sensitivity, which is really interesting because we know that vitamin D can increase a specific type of T cell in the body known as the T regulatory cell. And the T regulatory cell can help decrease chronic inflammation by shifting the tone in your immune system. We know that different probiotics also increase the T regulatory cells, and that's why there's a lot of therapeutics now that are targeting this T regulatory cell. And the one cytokine that shifts the cells is known as TEKKEN. It turns out that lactobacillus are terribly good for the bacteria probiotics that you can get from kefir or fermented milk products like yogurt or different probiotic supplements that can increase interleukin-10. That can affect the T-reg cell in a favorable manner. And most importantly, exercise and not having excessive amounts of body fat can also affect this T-reg cell. But it turns out that guess what? That having super physiologic levels of vitamin D can affect leptin sensitivity, which is good from an appetite perspective, but it's also good for decreasing chronic inflammation. So let's go to some of the summary and findings here. Our results in mice to this point suggest us to where myostatin was not simply playing homeostatic role, but is also conveying nutrient needs essentially. And its myostatin conveys not just how much energy is being used, but what the energy needs are likely to be. If we were to use the metaphor of the muscles as an engine, and myostatin conveys not just how much gas the engine is consuming minute to minute, but how large the engine is. That's really interesting. This model would predict that inhibition, that is high inhibition of myostatin, and increases in leptin signaling would not only increase energy expenditure, but would also facilitate increased growth. This is awesome. Like if you're going to have someone in a surplus, like most Americans have potato chips and Cheez-Its and all kinds of junk food and things like that, at least maybe shunt those calories to grow muscles and not just grow fat cells. They say to examine this possibility, we measured length of anesthetized mice from our diet groups. As we hypothesized based on this model, high vitamin D increases nose to tail and nose to rump length in mice. This result is consistent with vitamin D facilitating increased central energy sensing across modalities for allocation to muscle as well as for use in linear growth. This reminds me to remind you, if you have children, especially this time of year because you're not going out in the sun, at least in North America, make sure that they are also taking vitamin D above what the American Academy of Pediatrics says a 400 IUs of vitamin D, which is far too low to be considered optimal, especially for growing children who are laying down low on heart tissue and things like that. So for your children, I recommend minimum of 2,000 IUs of vitamin D. So that's something to consider. There's liquid formats you can put in yogurt or smoothies and it's pretty tasty. So tasteless. So vitamin D is really important. But what I want to do is go to the discussion of this paper. Again, this is just really interesting. Now, of course, there's limitations here. This was conducted in animal models. We need human clinical studies to corroborate the findings from this animal model study. But I replenishing vitamin D to normal decreased myostatin production, but further increases in vitamin D did not alter serum myostatin. Measuring leptin concentration across dietary groups revealed that replenishment of vitamin D to normal increased the amount of leptin produced per fat mass, while high-dose vitamin D increased sensitivity to leptin. And so there's a great figure here, figure 4. I think this is awesome. Yeah, I think there's really not much of a downside to super physiologic levels of vitamin D. 65 plus nanograms per ml, I think is a great target point for most people, especially I have several clients that get their levels up to 100. We do just want to watch for elevated levels of calcium, hypocalciuria in the blood. That can be problematic. So as long as calcium is, not higher than 9.5, I can't remember the units or threshold of serum calcium here in North America, but under 10, I think we're probably good. But also make sure that if you are doing super physiologic levels of vitamin D, to pair that with K2 to ensure that if your calcium does get elevated, you're depositing calcium into the bone and affecting those so-called matrix GLA proteins that vitamin K2 works on. So in summary, it seems that super physiologic vitamin D can help shunt calories and energy to preferentially make muscle and not form new fat, and it can also improve leptin sensitivity. So I appreciate you tuning all the way in. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll catch you on a future one down the road.
At Evo Japan in like May or whatever, I was talking to Gerald about this video. He was like, it's gonna come out soon. And I was like, fun it to me, because I haven't watched the video yet. Somebody a while ago, when TEKKEN got announced, said that it was a Tekken-like. And then everybody laughed at that person. What is a Tekken-like? And what is like a versus game and an anime game and all this? How do you make a video that defines like all of the different archetypes of fighting games? And that's like a pretty broad ask. This has come up a lot for me because people have been asking during the slam, like, oh, I played Tekken and then now I play Street Fighter. These games are so different. Like, I didn't realize how different these games are. How is Guilty Gear? Does it play like Tekken? Does it play like Street Fighter? And I'm like, well, the way I do it is I try to use the games where they come from. Comparing Tekken and Street Fighter is like comparing CS and Fortnite. Overwatch to Unreal Tournament. Like, they're just shooting games. You're like, oh, it's a shooting game. It's all the same, right? They're all pretty different. There's like broad skills that carry over, but yeah, there's a lot of complicated things about it. Is it Tekken and Street Fighter? It is a good fighting game. So, like you said, how to react? What do you guys think? Camera on or camera off?
When Riot revealed the gameplay trailer for the upcoming fighting game KO, a user on Reddit described the game as a Tekken-like, which caused the collective face-palming of fighting games.
I'll put it up here.
It was like someone saw these spring rolls and called them burritos. Burritos?
Well, I could go for some burritos though.
Tekken and 2XKO are obviously different to fighting game players, but it's not surprising how these games could be
AI spotted? Oh yeah. And he's like, yeah, I was messing with it, my bad. I'll remove it and not use it in the future, and I'll post all the timestamps to where it is. You guys can make fun of it. He posted about that, so yes,
I'll
crank it up.
Said about a genre of music like rock.
Wait a minute, this sounds like rock and or roll.
And rock music mostly has some combination of electric guitars, bass, drum kits, and around 3 to 5 members, but everyone knows punk rock is not the same as blues rock, which is not the same as technical death metal. There are so many different types of rock music now.
Yeah.
If you go back in time, you can trace its roots down to the father of rock and roll, Chuck Berry, described as the one who came closest to putting all the essential pieces together.
You never heard of it.
Archetype. So too with fighting games, if you go back far enough, you can find its archetype, Street Fighter II, The World Warrior in 1991. Yeah, inspired by many iconic fighting games before it, but they also served as prototypes that laid the groundwork for
most of these old games, it's really funny to look at like Karate Champ and stuff. Have you ever looked into what Karate Champ is?
Brought forward the 1v1 side view martial arts game, but its clunky double joystick gameplay did not hold up.
Look at this, bro. Like, could you imagine playing this shit?
These games were popular and sold well, but none would get close to the impact and success of Street Fighter II, which would go on to sell over 22 million copies across platforms.
A full of levers.
It had the right combination of design and gameplay that became the basis for so many fighting games going forward, including major titles being made today. Having the objective be to mess up another human player is what largely distinguished the fighting game genre from the single-player and co-op beat-em-up genres. It's why people were confused with
Sifu. Man, this gotta be the most cursed year I've ever seen. If you had to be like fighting game of the year and you could just pick a nightmare blunt rotation, this shit is rough. Multiverses in parentheses beta that they decided later or whatever won, and that's not even the worst outcome. That's how you know it's a bad one.
the fundamental characteristic at the top should be a versus mode. From here, we branch off into two categories, archetypal and hybrid, or if you prefer, traditional and non-traditional, or, I don't know, classic and modern. Like many games before it, Street Fighter II was a 2D fighting game with a side perspective where both characters are always facing each other.
Yeah.
Which means that the character
They even do that in Smash
as moving backwards and forwards as opposed to merely
kind of cool.
right. You cannot evade attacks by moving to the third dimension any more than the original Pac-Man could jump over ghosts.
Oh, that would be
That's
hype.
why these NPCs can be so chill when a fight is happening right in front of them. They know
That's
they'll
why.
get hit. While you cannot evade by moving into the third dimension, you can evade by
Mega-dosing fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin D3 is a terrible idea. I've personally been taking what's considered the safe upper limit of vitamin D3 at 10K IUs per day for the past 2.5 years, and this is enough to put me over the normal reference range. At around the 1 year mark, my 25-hydroxyvitamin D levels came back at 103 nanograms per milliliter, which is 3 points over the upper limit. At around the 2 year mark, my 25-hydroxyvitamin D levels came back at 125 nanograms per milliliter. Luckily, this is still below the typical level of 150 nanograms per milliliter, where we start seeing hypercalcemia, as seen by my calcium levels still being within the normal range. And I haven't stopped taking 10K IUs per day since this reading about 9 months ago, so I'm assuming my levels have only increased, which I will confirm with this upcoming blood round. There really is no reason for me to be above 100 nanograms per milliliter, and only increases my risk of side effects, so I will be cutting back dramatically after this blood round. The reason I was taking 10K IUs about 8 days to begin with is because the possibility of higher 25-hydroxyvitamin D levels being associated with reduced symptoms. Okay, I'm awake. After taking all that vitamin D, I was sleeping. And that's how I got into vitamin D, was through my sleep restoration program. I treat insomnia and sleep apnea. And if you're interested in either of those subjects, you can go to one of my other videos and get more information. Now, I want to make this clear, this is not medical advice. This is just information that I'm sharing with you. We're going to continue on here. This is part 2 of my video, what happened to me after I took 100,000 international units of vitamin D. So I'm still completely fine, and I took that dose to make a point that there is no one-time toxic dose of vitamin D. In fact, there is a peer-reviewed study available on PubMed, which is the medical research website, where they gave people 300,000 international units all at once with absolutely no harm. If you are concerned about your immune system and the coronavirus, don't bother getting a test. If you have been supplementing vitamin D, just start right away. There's really very, very few issues with this, especially if you take it with the right accompanying vitamins, which is vitamin K2 and magnesium. You always want to take vitamin K2 with vitamin D because vitamin D makes sure you have calcium. Vitamin K2 minimizes the calcium at carbon soils, soil for sun. Now, if you don't have vitamin K2, that's where the toxic part comes in with calcification of the body. But don't be nervous about this. It's very uncommon that if you're taking K2, that won't happen. K2 will manage to put the calcium into your bones and keep it out of your aorta, your blood vessels, and your skin. And I also recommend magnesium, and any type of magnesium is fine, about 400 to 500 milligrams. And that's my minimum requirement between K2 and magnesium because they go together. When it comes to taking vitamin D, it doesn't matter if you take it in the morning or the evening. probably best taken with some food, but I don't think it's all that close.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Health Coach Freelancer. I am Amanda, your OG Health Coach Freelancer. And this video is actually a follow-up video to a short that I posted on my channel. Actually the very first short I posted. Hello everybody and welcome back to Health Coach Freelancer. My name is Amanda and I'm your OG Health Coach Freelancer. And this is a follow-up video to my previous video about high-dose vitamin D. In case you missed it, that video was all about the high-dose vitamin D protocol I did to completely shift my health and transform my mental health, especially in the span of 2 weeks. One of you left some very nice comments on that video, and you shared your experience taking vitamin D as well.
Okay.
So now I want to get into what came next. Let's talk about it.
Get ready for the next
Okay,
battle.
so as a quick recap, and as I just mentioned, I took 50,000 vitamin D.
Round one. Fight.
They're zoning it. Good. Nice.
Final round. Fight. Round one. Fight. Fight.
This guy is lagging. That backdash is good. Alright.
Get ready for the next battle.
Lyme disease and this ulcerative colitis flare, I could barely put on strength for an extended period of time. So once I started feeling better, I got away, I started moving again, and walking was the easiest and lowest barrier to entry. I started doing that again, and at first it was only a few minutes at a time. I didn't even do like laps of the driveway, and then it was 10-minute walk around the block, once or twice, then 20 minutes, and so on. So I was walking for 45 minutes to an hour at a time. This slowly helped my muscles regain strength, and also as an added bonus, this was still the middle of the summer, so I was getting even more vitamin D by being outside in the sun sunshine. Which goes to say, if you don't want to supplement vitamin D, but you still want to be intentional about improving your vitamin D levels, I highly recommend going for a daily walk in the morning or early afternoon. You have the best quality sunshine for your body to absorb and create vitamin D in the skin. That would be the best time to do it, and that is really 100% free. It just depends, of course, on where you live, where you're at, and you can go outside safely and walk around for at least 15 or 20 minutes without sun protection. So there's a lot of factors involved, but obviously that is an optimal way to boost your vitamin D levels if you can. Alright, the next thing I had to do was start a vitamin D complex set. This one is and I've been using this one pretty consistently for the last probably 3 or 4 years now. But this was something that my ND also recommended based on my labs at the time, and
I'm almost 50, strong, clear, energized, training hard, living clean, fully alive. But it didn't start here. 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I felt hopeless. But I chose a different path. No meds, just science, discipline, and results. Now I'm symptom-free and asking the tough questions that move us all forward. This is Hope and Health. Let's go. Hello and welcome to Hope and Health. Today I'm talking to Ricardo Garcia, who is a Brazilian-born father, runner, advocate, and who's lived relapse-free with multiple sclerosis for the last decade, thanks to a protocol that involves high-dose vitamin D. Ricardo, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, you're born in Brazil, but now you're living in Canada. You've been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Thank you so much for sharing the story.
Thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, let's go back right to the beginning. Can you share with us the story of how you were diagnosed, the symptoms you had, and what decisions you made to drink your tea?
Absolutely. So the diagnosis came in 2004. At the time I was living in Texas, in the U.S. I was just finishing my undergrad. You know, the QC autism.
Gotta go to college. Yeah.
On my right side, from above my waist down. On my right side. You know, numbness and tingling for about a week. And then I was lucky enough to go, there was a problem symptom. I went to a physician. And luckily, he was humble enough to send me to a neurologist. Well, actually, I didn't think much of it because I had been down for about a week. They cleaned and went to the doctor. A week later, it was gone. They didn't have anything else. They didn't do anything. And because it takes time, so I said about a month for the first one that came up. And pick up a pen called a pen. He was there waiting. And then he came, he had to be melting the story of that. And he sent me for punch versus. Then a week later, we get a call from the nurse. They said the doctor actually was not MRI, not for the brain, but didn't give me anything else for what it is about, what's going on. So I went back, had an MRI for the brain. And sometime later, I got a call from and she said, yes, your diagnosis came back and you have multiple sclerosis. It doesn't have a big fear, and it's going to be
Diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. What did you know prior?
nothing at all. That's what you want to do.
With time of the diagnosis, did they explain to you what the body like?
Was left out of finding it all about it. Basically, he said, just that. It's happening here, and it's for the rest of your life. I mean, it was shocking. I was in my 20s, and it was devastating. I was at work. I still remember when I got that. But then after that, my brother lived in Texas as well. I decided to go and see two more doctors. The second doctor had me doing a spinal tap, which came positive as well. And then the third doctor is the one that I decided to follow at the time because his specialty was MS. And he said on the first consultation, my brother.
If you're joining us, thank you for tuning in. It's an absolute pleasure today to have
Big Stu.
I've followed for some time now. Judson Somerville is his name. So he's up on screen in front of you, and my pleasure to introduce him. We're talking vitamin D today, and we hope you take something away. Now, Judson, before we crack into it, just to give people some background as to who you are, obviously you're the author of the Optimal Dose, but just tell us a little bit about your background in education and whereabouts you are.
Yeah, I live in Texas. I'm a 7th generation Texan. I've always grown up very, very curious, and I've always kind of been the strange duck, as they say. It's never quite fitting in, which I can understand how that feels. I just was always different. I went to the University of Texas in Austin and got a degree in chemical engineering because it was the most challenging degree they offered. I figured, what the heck, give it a shot. And I loved it. It really taught me how to break down complicated problems into small bits and then build it back up. So basically, no problem is insurmountable or intimidating anymore because you just break it into little bits. I then went to medical school at the University of Texas. I think it's now called the McGowan Medical School in Houston, Texas. Did very well there. Really, it was a fascinating place. They really got me, which was probably the first time in my life people really understood me. So it was really a really great experience. Then I went to University of Massachusetts. I did 2 years of surgical residency. I was injured in a bicycle accident shortly after that when I had started anesthesia training, and I was the first person to ever finish that training having been paralyzed during the process. I was chief resident, and while I was there, I was really fascinated with pain management, so I went into doing that. I was going to do a fellowship in it, but the individual in charge of the program wouldn't let me in because he said I couldn't do it because I was in a wheelchair. It was funny, later I saw him at the board exam that I was taking. He was also taking it, so it was interesting. But anyway, so I've always been interested. My mom was very much into vitamins and such, so growing up my whole life, there was always tons of them around. I raised bees and apiarists, and I get stung, and I would have a date, and it doesn't look really good when your whole face is swollen up, so I kind of experimented around and found zinc cut the swelling down in half the
Jeff
time.
T-Balls.
So it's an experience where I had actually taken a nutrient and had a causative effect. Later, during my end of my college, I started training for a triathlon, and it changed my appetite, and so I was eating less and less meat, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was starting to...
Welcome back to the greatest show in the universe. Today we have author Jeff T. Bowles, author of the book, The Miraculous Cure for and Prevention of All Diseases, What Doctors Never Learned. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Amazing, man. So you were looking more into like vitamin D3 and what it can do for people, basically?
Yeah, I've been studying this for about 8 years now. I wrote my first book, maybe 10 years. I wrote my first book about, I think in 2011. I didn't know all that much about it. I learned a lot doing high doses of experiments myself. Taking high doses of vitamin D3, like way more than the doctors probably say. And it cured all sorts of stuff in I've had for like 20 years. Hip flick, hip bone, spur on my elbow.
Yeah, like not that fast.
Seasonal allergy.
That's good.
Where I was taking like 20 pounds a day, bumped it up to 50,000 a day, and did it for several years. One thing I noticed before I started experimenting with high doses, I'd been taking 4,000 units a day for 10 years, thinking it was a high dose because the doctors recommended only taking 400 international units of vitamin D. Okay? They said anything more than that was dangerous. I'm taking 4,000 a day for 10 years, thinking it was a lot. And it got rid of like some of my clicking shoulders around much of anything else. I had all these chronic conditions. I had for 20 years. And I got the idea to bump it up to like 20,000 a day. You're a big noise effect. My dog is squeaking. Okay, but luckily Alright, back to the topic. Yeah, so my dad, Stanford MD, and he thought taking 4,000 a day was crazy, so he did get him to take 4,000 a day, 5 times the recommended daily dose. Finally got a blood test for D3, and it came in at 30, which was like right at the bottom of the reference range. Like anything below 30 is considered efficient. That gave the idea to try a really high dose of D3 and thought maybe there was something wrong with family gene where it didn't process vitamin D well. So that was about, after 10 years of taking 4,000 a day,
Get ready for the next battle.
A day, that's when I had all these incredible results. Sort of about 20 years off the checklist. Even my eyesight got better. And so I wrote a book after about a year at this, and that book was the miraculous results of extremely high dose of vitamin D, the sunshine hormone, blah blah blah. Lucky best book I ever wrote. All of a sudden, right now I've sold up to like 3,000 because I just basically go through, it's like a diary of a 1-year experiment. I dose. A lot of people start reading that book and trying it themselves. And that was about 8 or 9 years ago. So my second book I just wrote about a year ago, and that's based on what I've learned an additional 8 years of research. And I've been getting people, like, they read my book, the email addresses in there, get emails from people around the world. Like, they put high dose D3. In fact, there was like one guy in Austria, his wife said he could die 2 years, one eye doctor said it was permanent. He was taking 60,000 a day, and after a month or two, woke up. His wife, you're not going to believe it. Today, my blind eye. So I mean, that's really all sorts of stories like that. People curing their multiple sclerosis, every autoimmune disease you can imagine. And any autoimmune disease, try high dose D3 that get excellent results. I don't think Big Pharma's going to like it because it means a lot of their drugs are pretty much unnecessary, very expensive, and have like terrible side effects compared to like D3, which costs almost nothing. But I've got a website, jefftbowles.com. That's BOWLES. Jeff T. Bowles, no spaces, jefftbowles.com, where you can send money. No, there's actually, I've been collecting all these self-reported case studies, and on that website, you can search any disease that you've got or any issue, and go to the Search D3 Cures button, and it's a search engine, and you pop in, let's say, multiple sclerosis, and all of a sudden you'll see like a list of like 12 or 15 people's self-reports of their high-dose D3 experiments, what happened, and you can do that for almost any type of disease, and you'll find something at that website. And plus, it's got another 60 different blog posts you can read through. So over the 8 or 9 years, I'm getting all these people emailing me with these crazy cures. They've cured asthma, they've cured Crohn's disease, they've cured psoriasis, any kind of skin disease, acne, any autoimmune disease apparently can be cured by high-dose D3. And so what I've learned and put into my next book, or the most recent book, was kind of started looking into the new drugs that Big Pharma's pushing. And I know they call them biologics. And basically, quite often they're like stuff that messes with your immune system. So let's say you got cancer, and they give you a biologic that's just going to rev up one part of your immune system, and it's the one that fights the cancer. So they're kind of effective in the sense that you can take this biologic for cancer, and it probably will knock out the cancer, but then any cancer biologics have the side effects of going after your good tissues too, like in many people. Like, so you can knock out your cancer, but then all of a sudden you'll end up with psoriasis or Crohn's disease, or any kind of autoimmune disease. And then there's another kind of biologic that suppresses one part of your immune system. And that would be like, let's say you had rheumatoid arthritis, your immune system has been attacking your joints. So they would have a biologic for that just suppresses that one little segment of your immune system that's attacking your joints, and then it stops the rheumatoid arthritis, but then it makes your immune system lazy, a little bit lazy, so it's not really attacking the bad actors like the infectious bacteria, funguses, I guess it's fungi. What else? Viruses. So the side effects of these autoimmune biologics is you could get cancer. Your immune system forgets to kill off cancer cells, or you're much more susceptible to infections. So either kind of biologic, the one that revs up your attack or the other one that suppresses your attack, it gives you a whole host of side effects. And the first thing I write in my new book is I talk about biologics, and I say, what if I told you there's the ultimate biologic, that it revs up the immune system with regards to bad actors like cancer, viruses, infections, and it suppresses the immune system that attacks good tissues. And it does both of these things at the same time with no side effects. And so I don't really mention what it is in the preamble in the book until a few pages in. I said, this ultimate biologic is known as vitamin D3, and it's as simple as that. It revs up your immune system, all aspects of your immune system, tunes it up properly so that it's properly functioning, it's not attacking good tissues, and it knocks out any bad actors like immediately. So if you're taking a high dose of the D3, you can pretty much forget about getting cancer. In the 20 years I've been taking at least 4,000 units of D3 a day, sometimes 20,000 to 50,000. I have only had one cold, and that's 20 years. And that was only after, it was a brief time I decided to any bad actors like immediately. So if you're taking a high dose of the D3, you can pretty much forget about getting cancer. In the 20 years I've been taking at least 4,000 units of D3 a day, sometimes 20,000 to 50,000. I have only had one cold, and that's in 20 years. And that was only after, it was a brief time I decided to wash the D3 out of my system, so I quit taking it for a couple months. And then, it's a weird story, but I think, I won't tell you how I got it. I inhaled some nasty dust when I was cleaning up a bathroom. That's all I have to say. Don't want to make you vomit. And I think that's how I caught it. And it was a nasty cold, but back then for some reason I got so sick with that one cold, I didn't even bother taking the D3, so it lasted like a whole month. But other than that, I've only had one cold in 20 years. I once felt a cold coming on, like I think I might have been infected with COVID-19. And I was sitting there on the computer, girlfriend was sitting next to me, and all of a sudden I just felt like I was getting hit with that freight train. It's like, you know, like when a cold is really coming on strong, it just feels like a stinking feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you don't? Yeah. So I felt it in my head, and all of a sudden it was coming on like a freight train. And I thought, oh my God, I got the COVID-19. So I went to the kitchen and I quickly took at least 200,000 IUs of vitamin D3, grabbed a big glass of vodka, went upstairs, laid down, took a nap, drank the vodka, and within 3 or 4 hours I woke up and I was perfectly fine. So if you ever get sick, you just need to as soon as you feel it coming on, take a huge dose of D3. So that's basically the beginning of my book. The second part of the book is, I don't know if you looked through it, but I've pretty much uncovered the conspiracy of modern medicine and big pharma. They really do not like people to know about vitamin D3.
Yeah, I was noticing with our last podcast, it got like 100,000 views in like in like a day or something, or a day or two, and then it kept the views kept going down. Like I see it censored. And you were saying that one of your books were censored too, right? When you tried to publish this, like in the beginning of the pandemic, whatever this is called.
Oh yeah. They haven't censored my new book yet, The Miraculous Cure for All Diseases. In that book, I kind of uncover how vitamin D3 was discovered in the 1920s, and people started taking it like crazy. Like they were taking 25 milligrams a day. At the same time, medicine used to be practiced inside people's houses. And in the 1920s, probably with Rockefeller's money, they were building hospitals all over the country. And there were so many hospitals, there were way more hospital beds than there are now per person. In the 1920s, they were planning on turning medicine into a big profitable business. And what happened was they discovered vitamin D, and they were putting it in everything, like hot dogs. They put it in beer. They shined sun lamps on milk, and that would cause vitamin D to be made in the milk. And so everyone was getting large doses of vitamin D, and the hospitals all the new hospitals they built were going empty. So big medicine back then was about to go bankrupt. And so what did they do? Were they happy that people were healthy? I don't think so, because what they did was they got some scientists together and they renamed 25 milligrams. They gave it a new measurement stick, and 25 milligrams of vitamin D became 1 million international units. And they told everyone, don't take more than 400 international units a day because it could be dangerous. But in the meantime, they were giving people with cancer back then, like pills that had 50,000 international units of D3 in it. And they were getting good results. So basically, that was the beginning in the 1920s. That was the beginning of the demonization of vitamin D3 by modern medicine and big pharma, and they've been hostile to it ever since. And but they finally whipped up some kind of bogus experiments where they're able to kill dogs with huge doses of D3 that were probably impure, had impurities in them. And that's when they started telling everyone, don't take more than 400 units a day because it's dangerous. But that's really ridiculous, because if a light-skinned person just goes outside in the summer and sunbathes for a half hour, you'll make like 20,000 units of D3 in your skin in a half hour. So doctors telling you only take 400 a day, that is like complete malpractice. So, and it's dangerous. If you take that little each day, you're bound to get sick. So,
it's crazy.
Yeah, and then, but they were able to get people to stop taking high doses of D3, and the hospitals filled back up again. And then along in the 1930s and 40s, in my book, I go through, they were selling, people started selling health lamps, they called them. They're actually mercury vapor UV lamps that basically sun lamps. And there's ads in the book. It shows like a little baby sitting in front of a sun lamp. And like, oh, let Junior, this is a great health lamp for little Junior baby, you know, or whatever Junior, the baby's name was. And I've got a bunch of those ads in there, and they actually worked. You know, they created UV light, which shined on your skin, and that caused your body to make vitamin D3, and it actually kept people healthy. I remember my dad was a doctor. He had me and my sister sit under a sun lamp back in the 1960s. Like we'd fly on a blanket on the floor and you'd crank up this old sun lamp. So even back then they still thought it was kind of healthy, but the doctors didn't like that because it cut down on their business. People don't get sick, they don't make money. So over time they got everyone to believe that sun lamps were bad for you, and they called them quack medical devices. And if you go onto Google and you type in quack medical device, not Google, eBay, you'll see there's a whole bunch of these old sun lamps for sale, like from the 1930s, 1940s, and they call each one of them a quack medical device. But it turns out that wasn't quack medicine at all. That actually worked. But again, big medicine was able to get that out of the public's hands just through brainwashing them, you know, against things that are healthy for them. And then people started sunbathing down in Florida in the 70s and 80s. That was very popular. Everyone wanted to have a nice tan back then, and we didn't use sunscreen. So what does Big Pharma and Big Medicine come up with next? In the 1980s, they started telling us, oh, the sun is so dangerous. You're going to get skin cancer. Don't go out in the sun. You have to use sunscreen. And I guess the population started believing them back in the 1980s. And
hello, everybody. Help me welcome on Jeff T. Bowles today. I have a big smile because this guy's hilarious. Wait till you hear him. Like, he is hilarious. Jeff, you're hilarious, and I'm from Ireland, so we like to joke a lot, and every one of your conversations that I listen to, I just laugh. So this is going to be a great talk.
What do you mean I'm hilarious? Are you making fun of me?
No, you're genuinely hilarious.
Oh, okay.
A while ago, and then I just got rather hole, and working with it, and you agreed to be on the podcast, and thank you.
Yeah, and I checked out your videos, and the first one I saw was that.
But I actually for like Source 2.0, and that's not flattery. Of everyone that I
my flag and one of my books ending. I said, nah, probably not. I said, but you know what? Let me find a cure for you. It should take me 30 minutes to 30 days. So I said, okay, I'm going to cure ALS. I used my system. I went into PubMed and I just typed in ALS. And I had about 15,000 abstracts at that time, going all the way back to 1967. So I just started at abstract number 1. I read that and I go, abstract number 2. So my plan was to read every abstract, so I figured out cure for ALS. And so basically, I started looking at all these abstracts, which are just summaries of big studies and tiny little summary. A bunch of them are all the same, so you can start going faster and faster, and then some of them are kind of interesting. They're kind of like puzzle pieces. They might be like the blue color, and you save the interesting ones. You got the blue one, and the pictures with clouds on them. They're kind of a group. And all of a sudden, you start to see a pattern and all these save the interesting ones. And then once in a while, like an amazing puzzle piece pops up. It's really weird. You might not understand what it means. And in the case of ALS, one pops up like, men get ALS 4 times higher rate than women, except around the age of 60, the ratio becomes 1-to-1. So men and women at age 60 get ALS at the same rate. I said, that's a real interesting puzzle piece. Put that over there. Didn't think much about it. And then keep going, and then around 7,000 abstracts in, I see that same puzzle piece again. The ratio changes at age 60. I go, wait a minute, what if women at age 60?
Menopause.
I said, oh my God, I've got it. And then the progesterone crashes to 0, more than estrogen for women. And that's when their ALS rates go way up. And so I thought I'd solved ALS. I was 15 days in. I said, I got a cure for it. I figured it out. It's caused by progesterone deficiency. All you got to do is take progesterone, and it should cure you. Because and then about 9 months later, possibly some scientists saw this. I wrote a book. Maybe they saw the book, and they tested progesterone on a mouse model of ALS. They found that yes, it did stop the progression of their symptoms, but only at the exact right dose. 2 milligrams per kilogram did not work. 8 milligrams per kilogram did not work. They had to tweak it just right at 4 milligrams per kilogram. And then they lived the equivalent of 17 to 20 human years longer than the rats that didn't get the dose of progesterone. So I thought I found the cure, but actually that was only half the problem. And then I got a whole nother, with ALS started writing me. And then one guy, his name was Aiden Arpa, really smart guy, young guy, worked on Siri AI. He's very athletic. I think he went to Harvard or something. And he was like on top of the world. He writes, and I saw your book about the progesterone. He goes, just wondering if high dose vitamin D3 would help ALS. I said, I don't know. It's a 50-50 thing. I said, try it, and you'll find out. So he decided to take a real high dose of vitamin D3, and then he emailed me back. He's like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. My vasculations, or my twitching, it increased like 5 times, and both of my legs are going crazy. Before it was just in one leg. So I said, well, I wouldn't do that anymore if I were you. Now that was a huge clue, because at that point I hadn't written my book about the 5 cofactors. I hadn't done a deep dive on magnesium yet.
Yeah.
So I really couldn't tell him what was going on. Only later did I find out high-dose D3 just eats up your magnesium like crazy. And so what I figured out from his clue later, once I wrote that other book, years later, research for it, what happened was if we put that high-dose D3 and got his magnesium a lot faster than normal. And that made me come to the question is ALS caused by magnesium deficiency? And then I did a deep dive on that, and it turns out everyone that gets ALS has all the symptoms ahead of time of magnesium deficiency before they get ALS. And then I argued with AI. Finally, I convinced AI that about a 90% chance that ALS was caused by an undiagnosed magnesium deficiency. So my ALS book is the title has something like Arguing with AI. And then we got this one guy to try the magnesium and the progesterone together. We call him Patient Zero. And he finally figured out the right dose for humans was kind of like fell down when he took too much, but when he took just the right amount, he said, I can start lifting my arms higher again. Figured out in his case it was 2 milligrams every 5 hours on your progesterone cream on your skin, or he was taking it orally, which is 5 milligrams every 5 hours. I claims that's an equivalent amount of absorption. Actually, I don't really know much about progesterone.
So was he also taking magnesium as well as progesterone?
Yeah, he went on high-dose magnesium. Like, you got to take so much you get diarrhea and then back off to where that goes away and you have loose stool. That's the most you can absorb in your intestines because it's very difficult to absorb a bunch of magnesium and then your blood. And that's why it takes like almost a year for people with magnesium deficiency to correct it. It's very hard. It takes a long time to get into your system. He's been taking about, probably 1,000 milligrams, maybe twice a day. And it added for about a month or two. He was taking the progesterone, and he said that progesterone helped him move his arm a little. And then we made the mistake of giving him just a little D3. Because that can repair your nerves. We know it's bad for you, but it's way too much. So I just try a little bit, like maybe 500 units a day. So that didn't really do anything. He did that for a month. He's been on the progesterone and the magnesium for about 2 months. He's been on the little D3 for about a month. And he wrote back, emailed me, he goes, you wouldn't believe it, I had a little miracle yesterday. I go, what was that? And he's like, I can move my left hand again, and some of my fingers, that's where the ALS started. And then we were like, wow, and then we thought, that made us think that the vitamin D3 was helping, but I think it actually happened in spite of the D3. Then we started boosting his D3 and see if it was helping, and he took 5,000, and then he said, I had a terrible thing, I fell down, and now I can't walk. So we're like, don't do that anymore.
What you were referring to, Jeff, when you said if you take too much D3, it can be bad. You meant in the context of the beginning of ALS. You didn't mean for the general population, because someone's going to...
Oh, yeah, right. Absolutely. I just mean people with ALS, not for normal people. But somehow it eats up their nerves are so magnesium deficient that eventually one of them just like self-destructs, and that gives off... the ALS is spread from a single spot. You might get it in your wrist, and then it starts to spread to your forearm. It's not like occurring all at once. It's little by little.
I figured out it's probably the magnesium deficient nerve gets so deficient that it finally just self-destructs, and then it releases like free radicals and other apoptosis signals, and then that gets onto the other nerves, and then triggers them. It eventually triggers them to self-destruct. So that's why it's kind of like I liken it to basically a brush fire, like a lot of wood that's really dry. You just need that one spark of one magnesium deficient nerve to self-destruct, and then it just spreads. And so,
does that mean?
Yeah, so basically,
Does that mean though, Jeff, when we see the tables turn on ALS for women once they pass 60, that I would wonder if there's a big factor of that is the stress response, because you don't have progesterone protecting you anymore from the stress response. Most women don't take enough magnesium, if any, but then you've got that increased burn rate, so your burn rate for magnesium, whatever magnesium you might have in your body, goes through the roof, and then you don't have the protection of the progesterone, like I said. So I wonder if the big aspect of that is the overstimulation of a woman's stress response once she passes that kind of landmark in her lifespan.
that might be something going on. I haven't looked into it, the link between progesterone and magnesium, but I think Carol noticed that there's some kind of link in our, we did a podcast and she knew all about it, so somehow there's some kind of link between magnesium and progesterone. But the thing I found out about progesterone was I don't know, in my early days of research, I used to harass these famous doctors. And what was this guy's name? The big telomere guy. Michael Fossil. You heard of him?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got some books out, and I used to like email him. Well, what about this? What about that? You know, I don't think you know what you're talking about. I think he got irritated with me, and he said, "Oh, I've got someone that you wants to. You probably should email."
He passed you off.
Yeah, he passed me off to this guy who was much worse than me and peppering me with email. Turns out it's this guy who has lost half his brain when he got hit by a van. And he did, but he was still functioning. So I guess you can live with half a brain. And then he kept telling me, progesterone's the most neuroprotective substance known to man. You know, and he's like, I've been taking progesterone and it's been helping me. And I looked into it and he was right. He was like, that women recover from brain injuries way better than men do, because they have high progesterone levels. And then, so that's what I think is going on with the progesterone in ALS. It's neuroprotective, protects all the nerves. And then when that, basically, I think of it as like a sprinkler system that's keeping those dry, magnesium dried out nerves catching on fire. And when the progesterone finally goes down, there's nothing protecting those nerves so much anymore, and then that's when the fire can start. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think the progesterone is also protecting whatever magnesium may be present, because it's keeping the stress response somewhat under control.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a whole bunch of science I don't know about with Carol seems to be well versed in the magnesium progesterone connection.
Yeah.
Another one to watch that.
So
somehow we got off on the ALS track. I don't know if that's what you wanted to talk about.
Well, I was like, let's start with vitamin D and then we'll go into magnesium, but I guess we'll keep with magnesium and then go into vitamin D.
Well, okay. So, yeah, so, go on.
I was just going to say, now with magnesium, I've done a couple of podcasts on magnesium, and I still think people underestimate the importance of magnesium, but also how much they actually need. And I take a lot of magnesium. I was listening to you earlier, actually, on another podcast, and I had a massive headache, and I was like, shit, I should take my extra magnesium. So I've already taken like 600 milligrams so far today, and it's only 4 p.m.
I didn't know I had a magnesium deficiency until I had like a frozen shoulder for a while. I couldn't lift it very high and trying all sorts of things. It was after I'd been taking D3 for a long time, but not a lot of magnesium. And I was cruising through the internet and I've been looking at the frozen shoulder, and this one guy's like, you can't fix a frozen shoulder without taking magnesium. I go, I'm going to give that a shot. For a whole year, I just kept boosting my magnesium dose. I started off with 500 milligrams 2 times a day of extended release magnesium. I did that for a few months, and then I boosted it up to 750 milligrams 2 times a day for another 3 months. And then I think I was about 8 or 9 months in, I started taking 1,000 milligrams 2 times a day. And that's a lot. And then after about a week,
Magnesium? Take magnesium?
check it out. It's called an ALS breakthrough. Number one is Tom. Guy, like wasting away, completely paralyzed. And started moving his left hand again, and he could swallow again. And then what else? And then later she noticed he was growing muscle, even though he wasn't moving his muscle.
Well, yeah.
And it turns out that the magnesium, I looked it up, is when nerves are repairing themselves or growing, they give off muscle growth factors.
Yeah.
Apparently the magnesium progesterone was causing his muscles to grow even without like lifting weights. Maybe some.
You know what else is that?
Bodybuilders can get on steroids and start taking progesterone.
You know what else does that stimulation of growth factor? It's molecular hydrogen, specifically the tablets, because they're found in elemental magnesium as well. So that's interesting.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I only looked up that one case because the therapist was like, I can't believe it. He's growing muscle in his legs and arms. And, you know, they come in, they move their legs for them. You know, she couldn't believe he was growing muscle. But and there's actually video of that guy at that Facebook group, if anyone's interested. So, but as far as magnesium goes, yeah, it turns out about 80% of us are magnesium deficient. Everybody. I mean, the soils are so depleted, it should be against the law. But it should be some kind of... Well, we're almost have to put magnesium back in the soil, but they just like to put in fertilizers like nitrogen and potash. Vegetables, they grow really fast, but they don't have many nutrients.
Yeah.
They look nice, and they can sell them, and they're profitable. Much less nutritious food, even in the animals, animal food, plants, vegetables, whatever. Everything, all the magnesium is gone. You cannot get you cannot get enough magnesium from the modern diet. It's almost impossible. So everyone has to supplement with magnesium, or else you're going to be subject to any of a long list of symptoms. Like the most common ones are muscle cramps, heart rhythm irregularities, anxiety, constipation, dizziness. And then in my book, which I don't know if you're going to put up on the screen or not, but there's a chapter on magnesium that's got like 3 pages of symptoms. Some of them are crazy. And there, in fact, one guy read my first vitamin D3 book, which didn't really talk much about magnesium. He left a review. He said, "Don't do this. This is crazy." Because he took high doses of D3, and he says, "I was falling down and hallucinating. I had to close my business for a month. I went into the doctors, thought I had cancer, and I finally told them
We are live. Okay, so I think it's incredibly fascinating when I come across data finding associations between magnesium and vitamin D. And to be honest, I was a little skeptical of this association. I've heard many people over the years say, well, you need to take vitamin D with magnesium, and that to me seems a little bit counterintuitive because magnesium, of course, is water soluble and vitamin D is fat soluble. But I came across this really interesting paper that I want to share with you, highlighting the mechanisms interconnecting the ways in which vitamin D and magnesium can be correlated. And so I wanted to just sort of hop on here and talk with you a little bit more about this, and also talk about some of the foods that, you know, are enriched in magnesium, where we get these certain foods, and take it from there. And of course,
Here's why adding magnesium and K2 do not fix all of the issues with adding a high-dose vitamin D supplement. Now, most people are already low in magnesium, and vitamin D uses magnesium at every single step of activation and transport. So when you push higher doses of vitamin D, even with magnesium, you're draining an already empty tank. That's why some people can feel worse or more anxious or even fatigued when they supplement. Now, K2 helps to steer calcium into bones and out of arteries, which is really important. That's just traffic control. It doesn't restore the deeper timing signals that vitamin D is supposed to run on. There's also the vitamin A piece. Vitamin D signals through the VDR, which has to pair with the RXR. That's the retinoid receptor. So vitamin A and vitamin D share the same nuclear machinery. When you flood the system with D, you can actually suppress retinoid signaling. That's why some people end up with thyroid or skin issues after long-term high-dose use. Now, if you look at the big trials and really dig down into the conclusion, supplementation raises blood levels, but it doesn't reliably improve long-term outcomes. No real changes in heart disease, cancer, fractures, and in some cases, megadoses actually showed higher risk of fractures. Why? Because vitamin D isn't just a nutrient, it's a light-activated hormone. And when your body makes it from sunlight, it makes dozens of metabolites, and it comes packaged with nitric oxide, dopamine, red and infrared repair signals, and seasonal timing. You can't do that with a pill. So magnesium and K2 can help, but they don't solve the real issue. If you want vitamin D and your hormones to actually work, you've got to fix your light and your timing environment. That's what I talk more about in my Safe Sun Exposure Kit. Comment?
I'm Dr. Benjamin Walker, and after nearly 20 years of treating seniors in my practice, I need to share something that's been keeping me up at night. 3 weeks ago, I was reviewing patient charts when I noticed a disturbing pattern. 73% of my patients over 60 who were taking magnesium glycinate, vitamin D3, and K2 at bedtime, the exact combination recommended all over YouTube and health blogs, were coming back to me exhausted, cramping, and feeling worse than before they started supplementing. Some had even ended up in the emergency room. Now, before you close this video thinking it doesn't apply to you, let me be clear. If you're over 60 and you're taking these 3 supplements, especially at night before bed, and you're waking up exhausted, experiencing leg cramps in the middle of the night, or feeling like despite doing everything right your body is working against you, what I'm about to share could change everything. in my 18 years of clinical practice treating over 5,000 senior patients.
Welcome back. This is Dr. James Sung, where clinical excellence meets excellent results. Today we're going to talk about magnesium and vitamin D. How does it work? What does it do? And what kind of dosages should we take in order to enhance our vitamin D? Now, I've made videos on vitamin D before, as well as magnesium, so you want to go back and watch those videos. But today we're going to talk about why we would use magnesium
Today I want to talk about vitamin D and a magnesium deficiency. There's a very interesting relationship between vitamin D and magnesium that I think you should know about, especially since most of the population is deficient in both vitamin D and magnesium. I think it's 75% of the population has low vitamin D levels and 45% has low magnesium levels. And here's what you need to know. All of the enzymes involving the conversion of vitamin D to the active form of vitamin D are magnesium dependent. That means if you're completely zero with magnesium, vitamin D will not work, period. And we know how important vitamin D is for bone pain, for insulin resistance, for your immune system, to prevent muscle cramps, cardiovascular problems with blood pressure, and fatigue. So magnesium allows vitamin D to work, and vitamin D also allows magnesium to be absorbed by a factor of 30%. So they're both synergistically helping each other. Now there's another mineral involved, and it's calcium. If you're low in magnesium, you're going to have problems with that calcium because not only does vitamin D help the absorption of calcium by 20% in your gut, but magnesium helps regulate building up at your arteries. Magnesium is really good for blood pressure and just having elastic arteries to adapt to exercise and bounce back from stress, things like that. And it helps lower cortisol and it will help you sleep. So there's a certain ratio of calcium to magnesium that someone needs. And roughly you need like twice as much calcium as magnesium. But nowadays this ratio is really like 3 times as much calcium as magnesium. And the simple solution is to increase your magnesium. But the problem is, how do you do that? Because the average person only consumes like 1.5 cups of salad per day, not even probably the dark leafy greens that high in magnesium. And also, like I think it's 83% of all the calories in the grocery store are ultra processed. That's another way that people are deficient in magnesium because our foods are just stripped of all the magnesium. And when we have this increase in calcium to a magnesium, then we start getting, calcification of the arteries. It even can increase the risk of different types of cancer. Prostate, colorectal, can increase polyps, which potentially could end up going into a cancer state. So I just wanted to put this on your radar to make sure you're having enough of magnesium to allow vitamin D to work. But also, don't forget about vitamin D. You need that as well. Now, because of the censoring and the suppressing of the algorithms on YouTube, it's becoming more difficult to find my content. And there's a lot of content that I cannot put on YouTube, unfortunately. So to make sure you have full access to all my information, go to Dr. Over 40% of the population is deficient in magnesium. You're about to find out that a magnesium deficiency can create huge problems for your health. The influence of magnesium in your heart, deficient, you can end up with high blood pressure. Magnesium has everything to do with the relaxation of arteries, muscles, smooth muscles. So if you're deficient in magnesium, you're going to have a little more calcium and your arteries are going to have a tendency to have high blood pressure. Another common problem with the heart is arrhythmias, okay? Pacemaker of your heart is neurological, but it connects the muscle. And you actually have 4 pacemakers. There are little cells that have this nerves, all been over treatment.
Also, magnesium, it's over. It's, for example, if you're deficient, you're way more at risk of getting diabetes, developing insulin resistance. So if you have insulin resistance, or you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, you must make sure that you have enough magnesium to fix that. Even your mood is influenced by magnesium. People that were depressed are nearly always deficient in magnesium. Another really good biomarker or indication that you're low in magnesium is C-reactive protein. It's an inflammatory biomarker, and without magnesium, it's very, very difficult to get that inflammation. So there's a big magnesium immune system relationship. The RDAs, or the required amounts of magnesium, range anywhere between 300 to about 750 milligrams. A person has some type of degenerative disorder or a heart problem, diabetes, or high blood pressure. The need for magnesium goes way. So if you're just operating on these smaller amounts, is actually located inside the cell, not in the blood. All the total magnesium you have.
Get ready for the next battle.
I can't. Yum, look at you.
Round one. Fight.
It's very simple.
Ultraman. Yeah. Morning.
Also other things.
That's okay.
Sugar, carbohydrates you need more.
Bad. I'd like to discuss the first sign of a magnesium deficiency. Realize that 68% of people in the United States don't get required amounts of magnesium from things and drugs and things that people are exposed to that deplete magnesium. Magnesium is a cofactor involved in 350 different it's something that is required by an enzyme for that enzyme to work. I'm not just talking about digestive enzymes, I'm talking about enzymes that make up all your biochemistry.
So much damage.
Very similar. Magnesium deficiency. Salads. Launch reading notes. You're going to be cool. Before I get into the number one most
that does so much damage. Yeah. Damn. That is so friendly.
Simple is not getting enough magnesium. I want to mention what foods to eat for magnesium because that's one of the best way to eat for magnesium.
Get ready for the next battle.
Why people get tired because they don't have magnesium. I mentioned that magnesium is necessary for 350 different enzymes. These enzymes are in the mitochondria, specifically the contribution of ATP. ATP is the energy currency that the body uses to power all functions. And magnesium powers something else that I talked about in pumps. Sodium, potassium pumps. It's in a little pump. It's in every single cell. Your muscles work, your nervous system to work. That little pump brings the voltage because your cells are like batteries. Guess what? Magnesium provides the energy to allow that pump. That's why you might have cramps. There's just not enough power to allow that sodium potassium pump to work in the muscles. Things start shutting down and you cramp. This is why the electricity cannot be traveled through.
Get ready for the next battle.
Big process on you again.
Your heart correctness. The energy becomes magnesium. Power. Fight. It's also because it's needed to make DNA and RNA products. If most of our division is just not eating the right amount, the most magnesium brains. It's just like
yeah. Respect.
oxide, it's might be okay, maybe as a laxative,
Yeah. I don't want to lose this guy.
certain medications, like especially diuretics, create magnesium deficiency, as well as antibiotics. Infiltration in your microbiome from several things. What happens is there's a certain thing that will start binding up a lot of magnesium. A lot of people start developing musculoskeletal issues like neuralgia, the trigger points, a lot of muscular.
Round one.
Fight. Visualization. How much watch this video.
Yeah. So much damage. Oh my goodness. King is so impossible. I don't play this guy.
Get ready for the next battle.
I'd like to talk to you about the real reason why stress, relaxation, comes, it has anti-inflammatory properties of sore muscles, takes I didn't know that it supports healthy blood sugars, and that it's one of the main electrolytes which keep the heart rhythm, and it works with calcium to support bone and muscle physiology. And if they've ever watched the video, they know it also supports ATP, the energy currency, related to your cells. So it's necessary to produce energy, and if you don't it's to support your performance, especially arteries and layer, and magnesium is needed to produce certain compounds to keep the arteries certain control. Magnesium is both basic, I think, and keep FDA recently allowed a health plan potency is what they like consuming diets with adequate vitamins may reduce hypertension, however the FDA is
I'm gonna ban that guy, I don't like him.
say that.
Block that guy.
High carb, high sugar it's not anything. So it's extremely difficult to isolate the cause and effect relationship with nutrients. So many factors involved actually in the diet. One is that magnesium has a huge effect on our vascular system. We also know that if we're severely deficient in magnesium, we get severe cramps, tendon muscle, just that shaking. That's all really interesting. The most 66% of the population is not even the minimum requirements of magnesium from the diet. Magnesium levels in the last 5 years, especially in the soils, the plant, the animals that eat the plant. Not to mention the 80% of magnesium is lost in processed foods. If you look at all the plant and magnesium foods, so where do we get magnesium? Well, guess what? Magnesium is at the center of chlorophyll, green stuff in plants. It's responsible for something called photosynthesis, where plants
get ready for the next battle.
Into chemical energy as carbohydrates, as proteins, and the photosynthesis process for the reason for oxygen. But the question is, how much of this appears in diet? An average person is about 1.5 grams a day. We actually need, especially now, we can get magnesium from grains, but of course, they're just too high in carbohydrate. So one of the best sources of magnesium is leafy greens. Anywhere we have chlorophyll. You can also get magnesium in meats, in nuts, seeds, seafood, and even berries. But there's not
get ready for the next battle.
Dairy products have more calcium. Deciding to take magnesium supplement, there are several forms that I don't recommend. One would be the oxide. Another form I don't recommend is magnesium oxide, as well as magnesium.
Round one. Fight.
I don't recommend these ones. Just easily grants, headaches. One of the problems increases oxygen. Which is really good. That it's very expensive.
死にならんな。
Damn, I gotta sharpen my execution skill. Oh my god. I start blocking those. Perfect.
Final round. Fight.
Nice.
You win. Get ready for the next battle. Get ready for the next battle.
Let's see.
Round one. Fight.
Lisa, why? Why must it be you? Should've not tried, but it didn't work. Wasn't a punish.
Round three. Fight.
No, it doesn't work. Nice. Bitch.
Fight.
Right.
Get ready for the next battle.